Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Zoo School Live. My name is Laura, and today we're going to be meeting with some creepy crawly friends. We have two of our tarantulas here today to help us learn all about arachnids and hopefully dispel some of the myths and fears that many people associate with these animals. So to start off, we'll focus a little bit on how spiders are a little different than most of our other creepy crawlies. So spiders belong to a group called the arachnids, which includes, of course, tarantulas and all the spiders that we have living here in North America, as well as things like mites or ticks and scorpions, and then, of course, harvestmen, which are, many of you guys are familiar as daddy long legs. They look like spiders, but they technically aren't true spiders. But all of those animals belong to the arachnid group, and they have a couple things in common. So we're going to take a quick look here at one of our biofacts. This is a Thailand black tarantula. So spiders have a pretty unique setup. They're going to have two sets of 4 legs, so 1, 2, 3, 4 on each side, as well as 2 pedipalps. So these smaller leg-looking things in the front, those are called pedipalps. Those help them to feel around and explore their environment. They're also going to have 2 main body parts. So they have what's called a cephalothorax, that's this first part here, where their eyes would be located on top of, and then they also have an abdomen in the back. So unlike an insect like your bees and your different butterflies, grasshoppers, crickets, things like that, they're gonna have 3 legs on each side, so 6 legs total, and they're gonna have 3 body parts. Our spiders are gonna have 4 legs on each side for 8 total and 2 body parts. They're also going to have these very prominent fangs. So that's kind of one of the things that many people are fearful of when it comes to tarantulas, is those fangs, which actually are called chelicerae, pretty cool name. And of course those fangs are used for one main purpose, and that is for eating. But we'll get into why that's not really a hazard to humans in just a moment. They also have an exoskeleton. So I actually have an exoskeleton of one of our tarantulas that we can take a look at. I'm going to bring it up so we have a little better lighting. So this is from our Tarantula Nightmare, who we're going to meet in just a moment. And tarantulas, like some other types of animals, go through a process called molting. So they actually, as they grow, they have to grow a new body, essentially. So this is that leftover exoskeleton. And I'll bring it up here a little bit better into the light. You can see that basically she crawled out of the old skin and had a new fresh one on the outside waiting for her. The really neat thing is that we can actually see those chelicerae, those fangs right there, and they're pretty big, pretty prominent. Now they do this a couple times throughout their life to grow to full size, and on the outside of their exoskeleton, which we can see a little better on this than on our live friends, are all these tiny little hairs. So those little hairs act as sensors. They help the tarantula to feel around them. They can sense when things are touching or approaching closely. They also use these little hairs for protection. So we're actually going to come down and take a look at my friend Nightmare. So Nightmare's hanging out right in this tank here. And you guys did not meet her yet. If you've been a Zoo School Live fan for a while, you did meet Rosie, who we also have with us today. But Nightmare is our larger tarantula. So she is what we call a Chilean rose hair, or I'm sorry, a Brazilian fire red. So we have a Chilean rose hair, that's Rosie. Nightmare here is our Brazilian fire red. So she would be found in South America, usually in a rainforest or tropical habitat of Brazil. And like other tarantulas, she's covered in all those hairs. Now, the reason that our friend Nightmare is in this tank versus being handled or coming out to explore like our friend Rosie is that she has a very specific way of protecting herself. She actually has tiny hairs on her abdomen that are kind of reddish in color. You can see them there nicely. And those are called urticating hairs. And those hairs she will actually flick off of her abdomen with her legs, and they are very, very small and kind of sharp, almost like fiberglass. And she'll flick those out to defend herself. So if she feels upset, if she feels nervous, she can shoot those little hairs at a predator or anything that might be bothering her, and they can get stuck in the skin and cause an irritation. So we don't handle our friend Nightmare because she is far more comfortable kind of exploring and hanging out on her own, and we don't want to cause her to flick those hairs. Now, many of our tarantulas get a bad reputation because they're quite large and quite intimidating looking, but for the most part, they are not going to be a threat to humans. They do have those chelicerae, those big fangs, but again, those are for hunting. Tarantulas are typically insectivores, so that means they're going to eat a lot of bugs and creepy crawlies, but this size of a tarantula could eat things like small mammals and potentially lizards and even other spiders. So they are larger than what spiders typically can grow to in our area. In North America, we're not going to find something quite this big, but like other spiders, they are going to eat a lot of small insect creatures. So their venom, they do have venom in their fangs. That's how they catch and kill their food. In fact, it paralyzes their food and kind of turns it into a nice smoothie. So anybody at home who likes smoothies, spiders like smoothies too, but theirs are made of a little different material than fruits. So they use that venom to make their food a lot easier to digest, but it's not going to be necessarily dangerous for humans. Of course, that bite could hurt, but they're not going around biting humans just to try to eat us or because they feel like it. They are usually going to only bite if they absolutely, positively have to defend, and that bite, while it will be painful, is not deadly to people. So I'm going to bring our friend Rosie out so we can get an even closer look. Thanks, Nightmare. She is a beautiful tarantula. She did a nice job showing off those hairs. So we're going to say hi to Miss Rosie, who you guys have met on Zoo School if you've been following. Rosie is a rose-haired tarantula, a Chilean rose-haired tarantula. So she would also be from South America, but instead of being from the rainforest areas, she's going to live in the scrubland and the desert. And she does still have the same hairs as Nightmare, although Rosie's a little bit more docile. Chilean rose-hairs are known for being very docile and very calm, and that's what actually makes them a pretty common staple in a lot of education facilities collections. You know, they're really great for programming. Like other tarantulas, she's got those 8 legs, she's got pedipalps, she's got chelicerae, fangs in the front there, and she's going to be hunting kind of a similar food as Nightmare. She's going to eat a lot of bugs, potentially lizards, small mammals. Now, most tarantulas are going to be nomadic. That means they don't necessarily set up shop in one place forever. They're often kind of traveling. And when they're doing this, they are going to find places like logs and rocks and crevices as shelter. So they don't necessarily build a specific den that they stay in for super long periods of time. They might set up shop for a few days, hunt in that area, and then move on. Now, when they are hunting, they will use a couple different methods for catching food. One of them is sit and wait, kind of ambush style. They'll hide in a crevice, they'll hide behind a log and wait for something to come by. They also might create a little tripwire. So tarantulas like Rosie and Nightmare do not build a web like many other spiders would, not to trap their food in the same way. They actually create a web for a couple different reasons. One of them could be a tripwire. So they'll string a small piece of silk across an area and they'll wait with their feet kind of on it. And if an animal comes along and bumps it, they know that something has approached and they'll rush out and try to grab it real quick. The other reason they'll build a silk or web is to kind of make their home a little more comfy. So when they do find a nice rock or crevice that they're going to hang out in, they will lay down a silk web on the bottom of it, almost like we would put down a carpet to make it feel a little bit more homey, to protect them from the dirt or any of the leaf litter, and also to keep other little bugs from crawling up and onto them. So they will use that silk as a tripwire. They'll use it as a nice little carpet for their homes, and they'll also use it to act as a defense. So if another animal touches that webbing and vibrates it, Rosie will know, hey, I gotta get out of here, something could be coming. So it alerts her not only to food's presence, but also to danger. So you can see as she starts to move, spiders, including tarantulas, have these amazing segmented legs, and they can be excellent climbers. So I mentioned that silk, they also use silk for climbing up vertical spaces. So while Rosie is free to explore this little enclosure here, we wouldn't leave her unsupervised because she could very easily climb right out of the side. And while it may seem that it'd be hard to climb glass or a smooth plastic surface, many tarantulas we're actually finding do shoot silk from their feet, very similar to our famous Spiderman superhero. So while they do have spinnerets on the back of their abdomen, it has been found in some tarantula species that they will use these little organs on their feet to shoot out silk so that they can climb. So Rosie and Nightmare will produce silk to help them stick to surfaces that might be hard to get on otherwise, which is pretty awesome. So real life Spider-Man. So I'm gonna have Rosie move just a little bit into a more lit up area here so we can take a closer look at her. We'll see if we can see those neat fangs too. Again, she does have venom. She would use that to catch her food, but that's not anything that a human necessarily has to be worried about. Now, many people this time of year see spiders used as decoration for the Halloween holidays because they do just have a very different body structure and they move a little more creepily than we may like. But in general, spiders are super important to our habitats. Again, they eat a lot of insects and bugs. So without them, we would have an overabundance of some of those species. So they help us to control populations of all different types of insects and small invertebrates. They also do provide food. So they are part of the food chain, both as a hunter, but also as prey. Not too many things are gonna mess with a tarantula, but larger birds, bigger reptiles, and even certain wasp species will use spiders and tarantulas as their own food source. So they have a very crucial role to play in the whole food web. And again, they're not really going out there looking for a fight. Most spiders and tarantulas would way prefer to run away than to have to defend themselves. A tarantula, if given the option, is going to try to remove itself from the area where it feels threatened before it tries to stand its ground. They may rear up their legs and they may flick their hairs, but that's usually a last resort. They don't want anything to do with us because we are much, much, much bigger than they are. So if you encounter a spider, most of the time, again, you're not going to encounter a tarantula here in Pennsylvania, but if you encounter a spider in your home, the first thought, hopefully, will not be to try to smush it or smash it. Remember that it's there doing a nice job for you, a nice service. It's catching those bugs, especially things like mosquitoes and other unwanted pests. And if you can remove it safely from your home and put it back outside where you'd prefer it to be, that's always the best option. So our friend Rosie is doing a nice job of showing off her body, those legs. I'm going to see if we have any questions in the comments real quickly. So remember, just like other Zoo School Live episodes, if you think of something that we haven't mentioned and you would like me to answer that here live, please plop that in the comments. And of course, if you end up watching this later, when it is on our Facebook page after the live, we will jump on and try our best to answer those questions. So let me just scroll here and see if we've got anybody that has something they'd like to know about spiders or our friend Rosie and Nightmare. Nothing so far, so we'll give you a couple more minutes. Just a fun fact with tarantulas, they actually make really good moms. So as much as they may look very different from us and we might find them creepy and crawly, spiders do a really great job of raising their young. So a female tarantula will actually spin a little web, a little egg sac, and they can have between 80 to 1,000 baby spiders in that egg sac, which is a lot. And instead of just leaving it though, you know, kind of dropping it off and being like, good luck guys, they actually carry their egg sac around with them for the entire time until it hatches. So they protect that egg sac as best as they can until those little baby spiders hatch out. Now once they hatch out, they're kind of on their own, but for the most part, they give their little babies the best chance possible in order to hopefully set the next generation up for success. Now Rosie and Nightmare, we believe, are both female spiders, and part of this is because they are a few years old. When it comes to tarantulas, the males actually only live about 5 years, when the females can live for closer to 15 to 20. So female tarantulas live a lot longer than their male counterparts. And males, basically, they live long enough to mature help mate and reproduce, and then they pass on. So they're not around for a super long time. They're basically just there to help make the next generation, while as the females can reproduce multiple times throughout their life. All right, guys, let's see if we've got any questions. I see lots of thumbs up and cools, and we're really glad that we're getting those because, again, spiders kind of get a bad reputation. Many people are fearful of them, but they are incredible animals that are very, very important and deserve our appreciation despite how different they may look. All right. I do have one more thing I can kind of show you guys here. We'll say goodbye to our friend Rosie while I get this kind of set up. So I mentioned earlier that tarantulas belong to the arachnid group, and that includes things like ticks and mites and harvestmen, and it also includes scorpions. So we actually don't have any live scorpions here at the zoo, but at one point we did, and we were able to collect a molt from a scorpion that lived here. So they molt just like a tarantula. You guys can see here the exoskeleton, just like on our tarantula. It's going to be nice hard shell. The really cool thing with scorpions compared to tarantulas, though, is that their exoskeleton actually glows under black light. So this may be a little tricky to see, but I'm going to try to show you guys what that looks like. So if we have our black light here, you can see it turns bright blue. So naturally it's going to be kind of a brownish tan color, but with that black light, it turns that bright blue green. And that's just a really cool chemical reaction. Some chemical in their exoskeleton is going to show up under that UV light. Many different insects are known to have this, and plants as well. And that's because these guys can see in many different spectrums compared to humans. So Rosie and Nightmare and any kind of animal like a tarantula or a scorpion, they're going to see the world a little bit differently than we do. So sometimes their bodies are different colors under UV. Sometimes plants or other insects that they might be hunting are going to show up differently as well. That's just a pretty cool little science moment for you guys today. So that would be any of our scorpion species, which again are arachnids just like tarantulas. All right, guys, I think that's all we've got for today. Let me just make sure we don't have any last questions here. All right, we'll pop over and we'll say goodbye to Nightmare and to Rosie real quickly. Remember, Nightmare is our Brazilian fire red, one of our awesome spiders here, and then Rosie, of course, our Chilean rose-haired tarantula. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about spiders today, and hopefully you've come away with a little bit more appreciation of them. If you guys think of any questions as we go, please drop them in the comments and I'll hop back on later to answer them. Remember, we are open and we are celebrating Halloween here at the zoo this weekend on Friday night. We have trick-or-treat nights, and then of course on Saturday and Sunday we have Boo at the Zoo, where you can come and meet Nightmare and Rosie in person if you check out our Discovery Center learning area. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you on Thursday. Have a wonderful rest of your day.